Joining us now to break down the state of the 2020 race is Jeanne Ives, the Republican congressional candidate in Illinois' 6th District. So, Jeanne, I think it's interesting because what we're seeing with Joe Biden is something that is almost a rule in politics. During the primary, you see the candidate, for example, the Democratic candidate, pivot to the left to appease the base, only to then pivot more to the center in hopes of achieving more independent and moderate voters. Is that what's happening right now with Joe Biden?
Oh, I think so. Absolutely. In fact, he's accusing Trump of things that he's actually at fault with, whether it's defunding the police or not. So he's trying to muddle the conversation as best he can. But I know that Trump and his colleagues are not going to let him get away with it.
And you bring up a good point because the protest is the most recent and I think the most highlighted example of him pivoting on that issue. But we also saw it, for example, last week when it came to NAFTA. We saw Joe Biden kind of reverse course a little bit, saying, well, NAFTA wasn't great, but then putting the blame on the prior administrations that came after his vote for that trade agreement. So I think we're going to continue to see this, things that he said during the primary, only to flip on then in the general election. But we've seen that whether it's his economic agenda, whether it's even his slogan, Build Back Better, I think it is. We do see a lot of similarities with the Trump campaign. So does this suggest that both campaigns know who the target audience is? It's just a matter of who that audience agrees with.
Well, this suggests that the Democrats have done their set of polling too, and they know that the law and order issue is a big issue around the country, and people are tired of it. And they're tired of the lack of civility as well. And they also know that the most important thing that is on people's mind is their job. And Trump has a great record on jobs, and so they know that they have to pivot. They have to stand up for law and order, and they have to talk about jobs. I think the other big alarming thing is his pivot on China. This guy, he and his whole family have profited off of China, obviously, and to say now that he's going to be tough on China is just a ridiculous statement.
And the whole China topic, too, that's an important one because it redirects a lot of the blame away from the Trump administration and puts it back on China. That's something that we know the Trump campaign is looking to do. But you're exactly right. When it comes to Biden as well, he has ties to China in the past. At the early days of the pandemic, he was one of those people saying it was xenophobic to cut off travel to China, only to endorse it then, I think it was 2.5 months later. So you see kind of the idea that Biden is always a little bit behind the curve, whether it's on NAFTA, whether it's on the Iraq War, whether it's on these protests. But he is facing a problem right now when it comes to younger voters. But another problem is, even if he does appeal to younger voters, they don't always come out and vote. And I think that's, for example, why Social Security is such a hotly contested topic. But student loans, for example, don't get talked about too much because those people don't come out and vote. Is this something that you see in your congressional race?
Well, you know what we see in my congressional race is exactly what you're seeing at the national level. My opponent refuses to debate me because he doesn't want to be called on the carpet for his really bad policy choices, including increasing Social Security taxes by 20%. He doesn't want to talk about his ideas to repeal the 2017 tax cut. And if he did that, 90% of the people in this congressional district would see a $2,000 higher federal tax bill. He doesn't want to talk about that he supports the new progressive tax that the Democrats want in the state of Illinois. So they don't want to talk about the policies. They don't want to talk about the issues. They don't want to see the interviewers, typically the media, doesn't know enough to pin them down on their policy choices. And it's the same thing with Joe Biden. They're hiding in the basement, and it's just terrible.
And that's problematic to me on even a bigger level. I understand the political reasons for doing it, but what you're speaking to right now is feeding into echo chambers. The idea that they don't want to have a debate of ideas. They don't want other people to hear the other side of the argument. But instead, if you were to focus on your base, for example, and hope that you can grow it that way without having to face questions from the other side, that seems to be the strategy that a lot of people are going for right now. And for me, it's problematic from a viewer standpoint, a consumer standpoint, if you will, because I think it's better when candidates are trying to argue or fight, rather, for the voters themselves rather than for just the base that already exists behind their support. So let me ask you, with 2 months to go until the November race, what's your strategy for not only combating that, but the other type of accusations that Kasten may be levying against you or the other problems that are in your campaign?
Well, listen, there's a total lack of civility at this point in this campaign. My signs have been defaced with some of the biggest slurs against women that you can imagine. And Sean Kasten has not called that out specifically, but in general made a statement about how we need to act nice in the political realm, and yet he won't act nice at all. This is a man who made fun of gun owners, saying that having small genitals is not a sufficient reason to own a gun. This is a man who mocked Marco Rubio for tweeting out a Bible verse. It's a man who also tweeted out the Cardi B soft porn video as well. He needs to answer for all this, and the media is not holding him accountable, which is why he does not want to be in front of the media, which is why he does not want to debate me on these issues. It's both a character issue and a policy issue. Every time Sean Cassidy and the Democrats talk about solutions to people's problems, it always involves more taxes and another failed government program. I've had enough of it, and I think that our message to voters, again, is going to be on those core policy choices that they have in 2020. Do you want more government in your life or more freedom in your life?
It's really interesting that the debates that we're talking about at the very top of the Democratic ticket are the same things that are taking place all the way down at the lower part of the ticket, even if it's not necessarily in Washington, D.C., but in Illinois' 6th Congressional District. I think that speaks to something, and I don't know if I'm smart enough to give the analysis of necessarily what it means, but that is something that we've talked to a couple people about that does seem to be a recurring theme for a lot of these candidates. So it's something that we're going to keep an eye on as well moving forward. But Jeanne Ives, it's always a pleasure having you on the program, breaking down where we stand in the 2020 race. Thank you.